My dad begged me for 10 grand to save his failing shop, but I said no. Now my family calls me selfish. He's blown my money before, and I'm barely scraping by. Am I wrong to protect myself, or should I bail him out again? I've been stuck in this mess for weeks now, and I can't tell if I'm being reasonable or just a total jerk. It all started when my dad called me up out of the blue, asking for money. Not just a couple $100 to tide him over, but 10 grand, $10,000, for his latest business idea that's already circling the drain. He's got this failing auto repair shop he sank his retirement savings into, and now he's coming to me to bail him out. I said no, and ever since, my family's been acting like I'm the worst son alive. I'm starting to wonder if they're right, or if I'm just done being the ATM for Dad's bad decisions. Let me back up a bit so you get the full picture. My dad's always been the kind of guy who thinks he's one step away from striking it rich. He's got big dreams. I'll give him that big, loud, this time it's gonna work dreams. Problem is, he's terrible with money. Growing up, I watched him blow through cash on one scheme after another. There was the used car lot that went bust when I was 12, the custom t-shirt empire that lasted 3 months when I was 15, and don't even get me started on the time he tried to breed fancy chickens. Every time he'd swear it was foolproof, and every time, Mom would nod along like he was some genius. Meanwhile, I'd be eating ramen for dinner because the grocery budget was gone. I'm 26 now, and I've worked my butt off to not live like that. I've got a decent job, nothing flashy, just an office gig doing data entry, but it pays the bills. Well, most of them. I've got student loans I'm still chipping away at, rent that eats half my paycheck, and a car that's held together with duct tape and prayers. I'm not exactly rolling in dough, but I'm stable. Or I was, until Dad decided his latest disaster was my problem too. The auto shop was his big retirement plan. He bought it 2 years ago with what was left of his 401k, swearing it was a gold mine. People always need cars fixed, he said. Can't fail. Except it's failing. Hard. Turns out, he didn't account for the fact that he's not a mechanic himself. He hired a couple guys to run it, but one quit and the other's apparently unreliable. Then there's the competition. A chain garage opened up a mile away, undercutting his prices. Last I heard, he's barely breaking even, and that's on a good month. Now he's behind on the lease, suppliers are hounding him, and he's asking me for 10 grand to turn it around. When he called, I was at my apartment eating takeout with my girlfriend, Mia. She's 24, works as a barista while she finishes her graphic design degree, and she's the most level-headed person I know. Dad's voice was all upbeat at first, like he was pitching me a timeshare. Ryan, my boy, I just need a little help to get this thing back on track. You've got that good job now. 10 grand's nothing for you, right? I almost choked on my low main. 10 grand's nothing? That's more than I have in savings after scraping by for years. I told him I didn't have that kind of money lying around, and even if I did, I wasn't sure I'd give it to him. That's when he got quiet, then said, I didn't raise you to be selfish, Ryan. Selfish. That word's been bouncing around my head ever since. He hung up after a lecture about family loyalty, and I just sat there, staring at my phone. Mia was pissed on my behalf. He's got some nerve, she said, stabbing her fork into her fried rice. Didn't he borrow, what, $2,000 from you a few years back and never pay it back? She's right. When I was 22, fresh out of college and drowning in debt, Dad needed cash for some emergency with the t-shirt thing. I gave it to him, every penny I'd saved from my part-time gig, because he swore he'd pay me back. But he didn't. Mia's never forgotten that, and honestly, neither have I. But it didn't stop with Dad. The next day, my older brother, Lauren, texted me. Yeah, Lauren's a guy. Mom thought it sounded unique when he was born. He's 29, lives an hour away, and works as a bartender. He's always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong even when he was screwing up. Never went to college, never had a steady plan, but somehow he's Dad's golden boy. His text was straight to the point. Dude, what's wrong with you? Dad needs help and you're just sitting there? Family's supposed to step up. I fired back, asking why he wasn't stepping up then. Since he's got no kids, no mortgage, just a roommate splitting his rent. He didn't reply. Typical Lauren, big on guilt trips, short on action. Then Mom got involved. She called me that night, her voice all soft and wobbly like she was about to cry. "Ryan, your dad's worked so hard his whole life. He just needs a little support right now. Don't you want to see him happy?" That's Mom's thing. She's the queen of emotional blackmail. She's 55, a retired nurse, and she spent decades enabling Dad's nonsense. She doesn't work anymore, so it's not like she's got cash to throw at this either. But she's great at making me feel like I'm kicking a puppy if I don't cave. I told her I couldn't afford it, that I've got my own life to worry about, but she just sighed and said, "I thought we raised you better than that." I hung up feeling like garbage. Mia tried to cheer me up, but we ended up arguing instead. She's dead set against me giving Dad a dime. "You're not his bank, Ryan," she said, pacing around our tiny living room. "He's done this before, he'll do it again. What happens when he tanks this and we're the ones broke?" She's worried about our savings. We've been pooling money for a down payment on a better place, maybe even a house someday. 10 grand would wipe that out. I get where she's coming from, but part of me feels like she doesn't understand the pressure I'm under. She's not close to her own family. Her parents split when she was a kid, and she's been on her own since 18. So maybe she doesn't get how hard it is to say no to mine. The fallout's only gotten worse. Last weekend, I went to my cousin's birthday party at my aunt's house. Normally, those things are chill. Good food, bad music, everyone catching up. This time, it was like walking into a courtroom. My aunt pulled me aside in the kitchen and asked why I was letting Dad down. My uncle chimed in from the couch, saying I must think I'm too good for the family now that I've got a fancy job. Even my cousin, who's usually cool, gave me this look like I disappointed her. Word spread, and now I'm the selfish jerk who won't help poor old Dad. Nobody's asking why he keeps doing this, or why Lauren's off the hook, or how I'm supposed to magic up 10 grand without screwing myself over. It's all on me. I've been replaying it all in my head nonstop. There's this memory from when I was 19, working a summer job at a warehouse to save for college. Dad borrowed $500 from me then, said he needed it for supplies for some project. I never saw it again, and when I asked about it, he laughed it off like it was no big deal. "We're family, Ryan, we don't keep score." Except I did. I kept score because it was my money, earned lifting boxes in 90-degree heat while he chased another pipe dream. That's the thing, he's never learned, and I'm tired of paying for it. Mia keeps telling me I'm not wrong to say no. She's been my rock through this, even if we've bickered about it. Last night, she sat me down and pulled up our budget on her laptop. "Look," she said, pointing at the numbers. "If you give him that money, we're back to zero. No safety net, no moving out, nothing. And what's he gonna do? Fix the shop for a month before it flops again?" She's got a point. I've seen the shop, it's a dump. Rusted tools, a flickering sign, oil stains everywhere. Even if I gave him the cash, I don't trust him to turn it around. He'd probably blow it on some genius fix that'd make it worse. But then there's Mom's voice in my head, and Lauren's texts, and the way my aunt looked at me. I keep asking myself if I'm being too harsh. Dad's not a bad guy, he's just clueless. He's never hit me or cheated on Mom or anything dramatic like that. He's just him. And yeah, he's getting older, 62 now, and I know he's scared of losing everything. Part of me feels like I should help, like maybe this time he'd figure it out. But the other part, the part that's still pissed about that 2 grand from 4 years ago, says I'd be an idiot to trust him again. It's not just about the money either. It's the way they're all acting like I owe this to him, like I'm not allowed to have my own life. Lauren's out there living his carefree bartender life, Mom's playing martyr, and Dad's pretending he's one loan away from success. Meanwhile, I'm the bad guy for wanting to keep my head above water. I talked to a buddy about it over beers the other night, and he said I should just give Dad a smaller amount, like 1,000, to shut them up. But that feels like a cop-out. I'd still be out the cash, and they'd still expect more later. The latest twist came yesterday. Dad left me a voicemail sounding all defeated. "Ryan, I don't know what else to do. The shop's all I've got left. If you can't help, I get it, but I thought you'd be there for me." It hit me hard. I sat on the couch listening to it over and over, feeling like crap. Mia found me like that and got mad all over again. "He's guilt-tripping you, Ryan. Don't fall for it, she said. We argued again. She thinks I'm letting them manipulate me, and I snapped that she doesn't get how heavy this feels. She stormed off to bed, and I slept on the couch. I've been scrolling Reddit lately, looking for advice posts about stuff like this, and it's a mixed bag. Some people say you never owe your parents anything, especially if they've screwed you over before. Others say family's family, and you suck it up. I don't know where I land. If I give him the money and he blows it, I'm screwed and Mia's gonna be furious. If I don't, I'm the selfish son who let dad's dream die, and my family might never let it go. Either way, I lose something. So here I am, dumping this whole mess out there. I've been going back and forth for days, and I just need to know. Am I the problem here? Am I being unreasonable for saying no? Or are they out of line for expecting me to fix this? I feel like I'm stuck between betraying my family or betraying myself, and I can't figure out which is worse. Update. The changes that have taken place since then. It's been 14 months since I posted about my dad asking for that 10 grand. And man, things have gone off the rails in ways I didn't see coming. I figured I'd owe you guys an update since I've been mulling this over nonstop. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm handling it right. Life's gotten messy, eh? And there's a new problem now that's got me second-guessing everything all over again. After I said no to Dad, things didn't just blow over like I hoped. He didn't take it well. Kept leaving me those voicemails for a while, all mopey and guilt-trippy, until he finally stopped about a month later. I found out through Mom that he'd scraped together some cash from a loan shark to keep the auto shop afloat. Yeah, a freaking loan shark. I didn't even know that was a real thing outside of movies. But apparently Dad found some shady guy through a buddy of his. It bought him a few months, but surprise, surprise, the shop still tanked. By month 4, he'd lost it completely. Couldn't pay the lease, couldn't pay the loan guy, and the whole thing folded. Mom called me crying when it happened, saying they might lose the house now because Dad's scrambling to pay off the sketchy debt. She didn't outright blame me, but the way she said, "We're in trouble, Ryan," felt like a knife twist. Dad's a wreck these days. I've only seen him a couple times since. Once at Thanksgiving, once when I dropped by to grab some old stuff from their garage. He's 63 now, looks 10 years older, and barely talks to me. When he does, it's clipped like, "Pass the salt," or "You still with that girl?" No more big speeches about family loyalty. Just this heavy silence that makes me feel like I broke something. Mom says he's depressed, picking up odd jobs like driving for a rideshare app, but he's barely covering the interest on what he owes. I keep wondering if that 10 grand could have stopped this spiral, but then I remember Mia's voice in my head. He'd have blown it anyway. Speaking of Mia, we're still together, but it's been rough. That fight we had the night Dad left that last voicemail? It wasn't a one-off. She stuck to her guns about me not giving him money, and she was right about the shop failing, but it's put this weird strain between us. I think she's frustrated that I still feel guilty, like I'm not fully on her side. We moved into a slightly nicer apartment 8 months ago, used our savings for the deposit, but every time I bring up my family, she gets this look, like she's bracing for me to cave and drain our account. She's 25 now, graduated with her design degree, and landed a freelance gig that's starting to pick up. She's proud of us building something, and I am too, but there's this unspoken tension. Like, she's waiting for the next time Dad comes knocking, and I'm scared she'll walk if he does. Lauren, my brother, is a whole other story. After that text where he called me out for not helping Dad, he went radio silent for a while. Then, about 10 months back, he showed up at my place unannounced. He'd been drinking, reeked of cheap whiskey, and started unloading about how Dad's mess was tearing the family apart. He'd apparently given Dad a couple grand himself, money he didn't have, and now he was broke and crashing with a friend. He looked at me like I owed him an apology, saying, "If you just helped, I wouldn't be in this hole." I lost it, told him he's 29, not a kid, and he doesn't get to play hero, then blame me for his choices. Mia had to step in before it got physical, and he stormed out. Haven't heard from him since, but Mom says he's still mad, bouncing between jobs and couches. I don't know if I'm pissed at him or just sad he's spiraling too. The big shift, though, is the house. Mom and Dad couldn't keep up with the mortgage after the loan shark started leaning on them. 6 months ago, they had to sell it, downsized to this cramped rental apartment an hour away. I helped them move and it was brutal. Packing up my old room, seeing Dad haul boxes without looking at me, Mom quietly crying in the kitchen. It felt like I was watching their whole life collapse. They're in their 60s, supposed to be retired, and now they're starting over in a place with peeling paint and neighbors who blast music all night. Mom keeps saying they'll be fine, but her voice shakes, and I can tell she's scared. I offered to help with rent once, just a few $100, and Dad snapped, "We don't need your charity now," so I backed off. Here's the new problem that's got me twisted up. Mia's pregnant. Found out 3 weeks ago. She's about 2 months along. We weren't planning it, but we're keeping it, and it's thrown everything into chaos. She's excited but terrified, and I'm right there with her. We've got a little more income now with her freelancing and my job. But a kid? That's diapers, daycare, a bigger place eventually. Money we don't have lying around. And then last week, Mom called. She didn't ask outright, but she hinted that Dad's in deeper with the loan guy than they let on. "He's getting threats, Ryan," she said, all quiet like she didn't want him to hear. "If there's anything you can do," she trailed off, but I knew what she meant. They need cash and fast. I haven't told Mia yet. She's already stressed about the baby, and if I bring this up, I know she'll flip. She's made it clear she's done with my family's drama bleeding into our life, especially now that we've got a kid on the way. But I can't shake Mom's voice, or the image of Dad getting hassled by some thug over a debt he can't pay. I've got maybe $4,000 saved up. Took me a year to rebuild after the move, and part of me wants to give it to them just to get this guy off their back. But then what? We'd be back to zero with a baby coming, and Mia might never forgive me. I keep thinking about that $10,000 from last year. If I'd given it then, would we be here now? Or would Dad have just found another way to screw up? I'm stuck. Dad's not asking directly this time, but the pressure's there, and it's heavier with Mom sounding so desperate. Lauren's useless. He's got nothing to give even if he wanted to. Mia's my priority, and this kid's gonna need me to step up, not play savior for my parents again. But every night, I lie awake picturing Dad in over his head, Mom losing sleep, and me just sitting here with cash I could use to fix it. Then I think about Mia, 7 months from now, looking at me like I chose them over her and our kid. I don't know what's right anymore. So yeah, that's where I'm at. 14 months later, and it's not just about the shop anymore. It's a loan shark, a lost house, a pissed-off brother, a strained relationship, and now a baby in the mix. I feel like I'm drowning, and I can't tell if I'm still the jerk for saying no back then, or if I'd be one now for saying yes. Am I out of line for wanting to protect what I've built with Mia? Or am I screwing up by not helping my parents when they're this deep? I'm lost here.
Glad you tuned in. Like, subscribe, and let's roll into more must-hear drama together.